Warning.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Top 5. I am your host, Lee. With me, as always, I'm lucky enough to have my co-host with me, Jason. Jason, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, Lee. I'm good, man. Another good week, and I'm happy to be here with you, and of course with Alice with us as always. And I'm excited about this week, man.
Yes, I am as well. I'd be remiss to also welcome Alice. Alice, thank you very much for allowing me to be back here for a second time. I do appreciate it.
I think she's starting to like you.
All right, that's good news. I'd rather her like
Maybe
me as opposed to dislike or dismember me. So that's good.
yeah. No, so I guess it's let's show the viewers what what our top 5 is based on this week. Let's take a look real quick. Slashers it is. It's one of my favorites.
I'm so excited. Yeah, you and me both, man. This is probably how, between this and I guess and Ghost Stories, you know what I mean? Slashers were probably one of my first entryways into, once you get outside of the black and white classic Universal monster movies, slashers are probably were the next step for me into the horror genre. What about yourself?
Well, I love gory stuff, and you can't get much more gory than a slasher going after a bunch of people and just ripping them apart. So I'm down with slashers, man.
So true. Great. And I prefer my slasher to be a guy that or gal who just likes to, just kill you right away. I am definitely more of a fan of the slasher genre as opposed to the torture.
Believe it or not, even there's a couple of them that I think are pretty disturbing, and I've watched them, but I don't know if I'd watch them again. I watched them because I love horror movies, but it's like one and done. I don't think I would watch them again just because it was a little too much for me even.
Dude, if it was too much for you, I can't even imagine what it
yeah. I can watch almost anything, but I can think of a couple of movies, and I'll save those for another top 5, but that even I was kind of like cringing, like, like I didn't like that. I didn't like
that. It'll be an interesting top 5 when we do. It'll be your top 5 of the most gruesome films you've ever seen, and it'll be my top 5 of films that I will never see.
yeah, I'll check that one off the list. Yes. Yeah. Never.
It'll be the same top 5. Same top.
Yeah, that's right.
Just different ways of looking at
it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. So why don't we, without further ado, why don't we jump into our favorite slashers? And for us, I think what this entails is, lots of people have different lists and things like that, but this is just somebody who maybe was treated the wrong way, crossed, made fun of or something like that, and then snapped and then went on a killing spree.
Or they're just crazy.
Or they're just crazy.
Or maybe they're not real at all. We don't know.
Jason?
I will. I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to. So I would have to say that my number 5, 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween, the original that kick-started everything. And I guess that what got me, that's an iconic movie. And if you see his mask, Michael Myers mask, everybody knows who it is. Everybody. And there's been several in that series, and I would have to say that that is my favorite one out of that series, is the original. And
Okay.
it's something that, with me, that I love a movie as realistic as it can be. And this is one where, he killed. I'm trying not to give too much of these movies away now. I think the last episode, it was like, oh well, they just showed the whole preview. We don't have to.
Yeah.
But who hasn't seen the original Halloween? I mean, come on.
I'm going to say, I think it's safe to say that, if they haven't seen it, they know the premise.
Yeah, and this one does star the original, well, I won't say the original, but probably the most famous Scream Queen, Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean,
Yes.
as Laurie Strode and Donald Pleasance. I don't think you can get much better than him. People have tried, but I think he was the best Dr. Loomis that there was.
Oh, yeah.
But a little bit of trivia in that movie. If you look at the credits on that, it says The Shape. It doesn't say who played Michael Myers. He's referred to as the boogeyman in the movie, but in the credits, when the credits roll, it's The Shape, which I think is awesome because, maybe most people don't know that. They didn't watch long enough. I mean, if they're watching the show, they probably knew that because they're horror fans, but
Right.
it's The Shape. And I thought that was awesome, man, that they didn't say Michael Myers played by, but, and to me, it's just a great movie of, this guy's just crazy. And, when that movie was written up, of course, the series came out and they came out with part 2. And, then the third one was totally different from the first 2. It didn't mention really anything about Michael Myers, and then people were upset. But John Carpenter never started that as a series. Halloween was just supposed to be a bunch of different stories that were around Halloween. And
it was an anthology movie series.
What was season
actually,
3?
like a
Season of the Witch. Yeah.
Yep. It was like an anthology. It was supposed to be like an anthology every year. It was going to be a new Halloween story or a horror movie that took place during Halloween.
And that would have been awesome too, to keep it going like that. But, because once you get past several of the ones with Michael Myers, and it's just like somebody's just trying to make money and it wasn't working out. And you really can't mention the horror or thriller genre without John Carpenter in there. I mean, he's just as popular or just as big as Stephen King in there, or Wes Craven. There's certain names that come up, and awesome.
Very good choice, man. Very good choice. For my top 5 here, I have a film that came out in 2005, directed by Alexandre Aja, or I'm probably messing his name up, Alexandre Aja, I think it is, who also went on to direct Piranha and Hills Have Eyes, which are great horror films to me as well. But I'm talking about High Tension, which also had a nice little twist in there. So when you mentioned the imaginary character, I thought you might have been actually referring to this, because as you guys know, or I'm sorry, but maybe I'm giving it all away, but if you haven't seen this movie, please go see it. It's what it is. It's in its title, High Tension. I mean, you are stressed out and on the edge of your seat through this whole flick.
Jittery.
Jittery. Yeah, you are. I mean, at least I was like, oh my gosh. And the twist, I had no idea what was coming. I did not see that twist. I had no idea. I usually pride myself in reading into things and knowing things and be like, I'll nudge Cindy. Even though I do that all the time, I'll be wrong a lot of the times. But this one I didn't even. This one I didn't even guess because I didn't even see it coming. But it was just. I loved it. I thought it was a great flick because of the stress and that it gave me throughout, and then the nice little twist. I had no idea. I mean, it literally took me by surprise. There was no foreshadowing to it, or maybe if it was, I didn't pick up on it. You know what I mean? I was just totally surprised by it, and some terrible murders in this as well. But yeah, good movie in my opinion.
That's a great, and I didn't even think of that one. That's a great choice, though, man. That's a good one.
Thank you. Well,
I'm gonna have to give myself an X for not even remembering the movie. Feel bad about that, but it was a great movie, though.
All right, thanks, man. Thank you. I'm glad you approve. Like I said, I'm a little nervous as to what might be a horror film in your eyes, so I'm glad we skated through with that one.
Alice, that was nothing.
She's nodding her heads. I know she's nodding them. I saw. She liked it.
Oh, okay. If she does, please let me know if you
No,
actually see some
I'll
nodding
give you a
going
heads
on.
up.
Yeah.
I will do so.
So my number 4, 1996. Another name that we can put up there, you know, with your John Carpenter, your Stephen King, Wes Craven, Scream.
There are certain rules
Just
that one must
the
abide
first
by in
one.
order to
I'm not going
successfully
through the whole
survive
series or
farm
anything, but
release.
I mean, this movie mid 90s, so 1996. So just the names that are in: Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Drew Barrymore, Matthew Dillard, Rose McGowan, and that list just goes on and on.
Yeah.
And anybody that, you know, our age or even a little bit younger, if you came up through the 90s, man, you know those names. And here's there are so many things about that movie that are just, first of all, the mask, you know,
Mhm.
the ghost face mask. And that mask had been out for a long time before that movie even came out. And I think what made it popular is that's a movie you could run down to wherever, you know, I was getting ready to say the Five and Dime, but that really shows my age. So
Yeah,
let's,
run on down.
yeah, let's say Walmart or
Get a
Target.
pop. Yeah.
Yeah, you you could go there, and that's just a movie that, or a costume that they're gonna have. They might not have the costume that you want, but they were gonna have that ghost face mask with a robe. It was just a basic thing. So it just was something that, to take something that, you know, just this costume you can pick up anywhere, and now it's famous. You can't put that mask on without people knowing that's Ghostface from Scream. And there are twists in that movie that you can almost see them coming, but not at the same time. You kind of know who the killer may be, but you don't figure that it's, you know, I'd say I don't want to give anything away about these movies, but
Right.
I think that this bumped Nev Campbell up into Scream Queen category. I
Oh, it
think that you
does.
could put her in there, and even have Courtney Cox in there as like a sidekick, and David Arquette. That, I don't know. I kind of
Old
wish they
Dewey.
had, yeah, I kind of wish they had cast somebody else in that. But you know, when your wife is Courtney Cox, you're
Right.
gonna get a role. But
Indeed.
and you know, like Matthew Lillard, some people might know him as Shaggy, just in case you
Mhm.
don't know the name is. Rose McGowan, famous for her scene of opening the door going into the garage. And here's one thing that when that movie was coming out, if you actually go back and look at the movie poster that they came out with, it was uh, several of the actors standing there, and out front was Drew Barrymore, because she was the most famous person.
Mhm.
And they said, well, if we're going to promote this movie, let's put the face that people know, that everybody knows. You know, they know her from ET. Everybody knew who Drew Barrymore, and they put her out front. Well, she's in the beginning, man, and she's gone like quick. But I mean, it was great, her role, but it wasn't like they made it look like she was the star of the movie, I guess you would say.
Mhm.
And I mean, she was definitely a star in the movie, but you know, to me, Nev Campbell was the star of the movie.
Oh
And
yeah.
that spawned a lot of more in the series. But I have to just throw this in real quick. It also spawned off one of my favorite series of all time, Scary Movie, the Wayne brothers.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. You know, Take My Strong Hand. I love that
Right.
that whole series. And it's just Scary Movie. If I'm sure most people know, but Scary Movie is just a spoof on all of the horror movies that were coming out in the 90s. It didn't matter
Yep.
what it was, they were spoofing on it. You know, the paranormal stuff, the Blair Witch Project, the of course Scream, anything you can think of. They were just,
Mhm.
it was great.
I got to touch on the Drew Barrymore piece of it because that is so good. And people, it was a misdirection for the audience because nobody expected the most popular character or actor in that film, who they thought was going to be the heroine of the film, to die in the first 15 minutes. You know what I mean? And it was a shock for everyone when they saw that go down. Scream inspired a slew of knockoffs. I hate to say that,
Well,
but I
yeah.
know what you did last summer. Um,
Yep.
what was the one about, and the ones in the college? Oh gosh, why is it?
Urban Legend.
Urban Legends.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Those
Yep.
were all made within a matter of a year or two of
And a lot of them were actors or that weren't well known, especially like Urban Legend when that came out.
Mhm.
They weren't very well known. You might have seen them on like 90210 or something as a cameo, or
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden they just like blew up. Just like
they did.
I Know What You Did Last Summer, same thing. They were, you knew they I guess the brat pack of the 90s, I guess you would call them. You
Kind of
know,
like Jennifer Love Hewitt was in
oh,
I know what she did last summer. Sarah Michelle
yeah,
Gellar.
yeah,
Two 90s it girls,
yeah,
so to speak.
yeah.
Very good choice. Uh, for me, I actually have to put in Candyman, written
Oh,
by Clive Barker, came out in 1992 as a new sequel. A lot of people think it's a reboot or thought it was a reboot at first, but it's really, I think it's going to turn out to be a surprise sequel to the movie coming out, written by Jordan Peele. It was supposed to have been out this past fall, but of course the
yeah.
pandemic, pushed everything back. But no, Candyman
Can I let me
is
stop you for a second and say,
sure.
who would have ever thought that Jordan Peele could make horror movies like he does, man? You
I
watch
know.
the Key and Peele, man. You just it's
He's
funny how
made a
you
mark,
think it's just a comedian, and then all of a sudden he comes out and it's like, oh, this dude knows
and
horror.
and his horror movies aren't just like some run of the mill. These have gotten Oscar attention. You know what I mean? Oscar recognition. I think he won best screenplay for uh was it, oh my gosh,
Us,
Get
or
Out, Get
yeah,
Out.
Get Out,
Yeah, for Get Out. And then
and they're
of course
scary, man. They're
they really
scary.
are. They do a good job. And he's so, he didn't direct the new Candyman, but he definitely wrote the screenplay and is producing it. So I'm expecting big things from this. But I
Well,
mean,
wasn't
for
he
me, it
doing
was
like the new Twilight Zone or something like that,
he did.
or
He did. He
hosting?
was a host of the new Twilight Zone and wrote probably a couple of the episodes as well. He was a host, producer, and writer of a lot of the episodes.
Yeah, you can't put it on CBS, man. You need to put something like that on I don't know, like HBO or something like that.
Well, I
Or
think if they had waited or maybe kicked it off with the rebranding, which is now Paramount Plus, they're making a big effort to rebrand this whole streaming service. And they've got some big guns behind their streaming service, but that's neither here nor there right now. But
yeah,
no, to your point, Jordan Peele made a big, huge splash. But Candyman was good, man. Like I said, written by Clive Barker, and also the story, that the background story. It's a tragic story. I mean, this was a
it
good
is.
guy. You know what I mean? Played by, I'll be remiss to say, who Candyman is played by, Tony Todd. I mean,
Yeah,
Tony Todd is another horror. You reckon what Final Destination? Not so tons of horror films. This guy's in, and of course he's playing Candyman. So the gravitas that he puts behind that role, and anyway. But like I said, it's a tragic story. You know, all he was in love with a woman who happened to be of the back then of the wrong race, and they hunted him down, cut his hand off, poured honey all over him, and stung to death. But he also has a little bit of a little bit more of a tragic and deeper storyline behind him too. So to me, and Clive Barker also was just somebody who, he's been there, and he's for true horror fans, people know the name, of course,
yeah,
Hellraiser.
yeah.
He's definitely is more associated with that storyline, maybe I would think, than Candyman, but he is the guy who created Candyman.
I
He's great.
liked Candyman, and it did touch on the whole thing about the Bloody Mary thing, saying Candyman, and
Yeah.
yeah, just don't do stuff like that. Don't say people's name into the mirror. Just
Exactly right.
yeah. Number three is one that I don't know. You have to put this one on the list. 1984, A Nightmare on Elm Street,
All right. All right.
and
All right.
you know, iconic Robert Englund, and the movie touches base on a a killer that was killing children, and the parents teamed up when they got together and killed him, and of course then he ends up coming back in your dreams or your nightmares, I should say. But iconic. Another thing, and I think this is the first one that touched on the glove. You'd seen killers with all kinds of weapons, you know,
Mhm.
stuff that was at your disposal. You know, you had knives, you had axes, you had all this other stuff, but there had never been anybody that took knives and put them on a glove. And that is so iconic now. If you just see that, you know what it's from. Um, of course, that's Wes Craven. And it also was a Heather Langenkamp and
Mhm.
as Nancy. And in the first movie where we are introduced to Johnny Depp.
Yes,
It's his first
indeed.
movie. And you know, he went on to do a couple of other things since then.
You.
Yeah, a few. John Saxon was Nancy's father or the cop. Uh, it was a great story. It had some very memorable scenes, like where she's running up the stairs and the stairs are just, you know, it just starts sucking her feet in. It's almost like trying to get up through oatmeal or something. The her friend being dragged through the school halls in the body bag. Um, just classic. The telephone with the tongue coming out of it, you know, it's
Yep.
just fun. Just, you know, and that's one of those things, those movies that when you think about it, it's you're fine until you fall asleep. You know, he
Yeah.
cannot get you until you're sleeping. So you know, that throughout the movie, Nancy's drinking coffee, she's taking caffeine pills, whatever she can, she's burning herself to stay awake. And you sooner or later you have to sleep or you're going to just die one way or the other. He's going to get you. So it's no
Mhm.
escaping him, no escaping. And
Mhm.
everything from the glove to the hat to the striped sweater, just iconic. If you see that, everybody knows Freddy Krueger.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? I'll just tell you, man. It's funny you have it as number three. That's my number three as well.
Hell
It's so we'll
What
just talk
yeah,
about
is
it.
it?
that's
But
what I'm
I
Yeah.
talking
actually,
about.
because I do have Nightmare on Elm Street, but because of I think it would behoove us to talk about. I'm going to talk about the next my favorite film out of that series, which is what I have. So it's Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, which came out in
Yeah.
'87. You know, so 3 years after the original one that you're talking about, and I
Patricia
thought
Arquette was in that one, right?
yes, she was.
Okay.
She played Kristen Parker.
Okay.
You know, and so this was notable for bringing back Heather Langenkamp uh,
Yep.
to to be Nancy. She was a doctor. You know, what I thought was pretty tragic about this potential one is the fact that it's preying on a group of kids who were already having a lot of severe mental and other challenges, drug issues, you know, things like that. You know what I mean? And was just preying on these kids who were already pretty low themselves in
Yeah.
life, you know. And then it was good because, like I said, this actually brought back Wes Craven. I believe he wrote it. I know he didn't direct it, but I know he was definitely involved in this one again.
Yeah.
Uh, because you know, less said about part two. I don't think part two is that good. Of it, you know, I think it was a lot
Dude,
let down for a lot of people.
all I can think
You know,
about on part two and was when the boy comes home, who's now living in Nancy's house, and his father tells him to clean his room up, and he goes up there and he puts his music on, it's some cheesy ass 80s music, and he's dancing around, and they're showing like film clips of his butt as he's shaking, and I'm like, that's not what I tuned in for, man.
I
But
know. Yeah,
it was classic
there.
80 dancing. You know, it was like, come on, at least do the Molly Ringwald or something. You don't have to do all that other stuff.
No,
But
I mean, and this is neither wrong nor so. This is nothing, but it was a lot of for whatever reason, a lot of homosexual innuendo in the second one. No,
yeah,
then there's nothing absolutely wrong with that, but that's it totally was a lot of that in that part too. For whatever reason, they felt like they're putting it in there, which is fine, but it just wasn't to me a good follow up. Not because of that, it just wasn't a good follow up to this
it
last
wasn't.
movie. You
It
know what I
wasn't.
mean?
The school
Um,
bus scene was okay. Like, you know,
in
when they
the opening,
yeah,
it
that was all
was
right.
right. It was, but no part. Go back to part one. To me, that was also one of the surprise endings in film that I hadn't really seen
The
that much. You
the
know, at that point
mother,
in time. Yeah, when she got snatched through the front window
yeah,
there, you know, and then that's what it then doesn't the bus go crazy too at that point in time, right?
yep.
As soon as her mom gets snatched through, it's like Freddie's driving the bus or somebody's driving the bus, or if I remember correctly. But no, so yeah, so again, you know, Freddie, I think deserves obviously a mention on this list because what other? I mean, there's very
Well,
maybe two other horror guys that are iconic, more
yeah,
iconic, just as iconic as him. You know.
but Dream Warriors, the third one, has, when Nightmare on Elm Street started, it was scary, but by the time you get to part 3, you start seeing a little humor come into it.
Welcome to prime time, bitch. I think
That's
that
right.
was the line that really started the whole wisecracking. He didn't
Yeah.
go, he hadn't devolved, because
No.
when he goes into more of the wisecracking stage, that's
Yeah.
a devolved Freddy to me, not an evolved Freddy. You know what I mean? It gets a little bit more watered down. But yes, to your point, that is where it was the inkling, of him going down that route.
But iconic scenes in that one too, with the one girl was a drug addict, so then he had the fingers that had the syringes on them,
Mhm.
and then like her arms got the little mouths that are, like feed me and all that. But that's a good one, man. I have to say, for me, it was the first one. But the third one is definitely great.
And
We
they brought
won't
back John
even,
Saxon also, like I said, in playing camp and stuff. We won't even
yeah.
what
I don't even want to mention. I'll mention it, but we won't probably ever talk about it unless we're talking about our top 5 most horrible remakes. The remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, and nothing against the actor that played Freddy, because he's an incredible actor, but you can't. When we talk about all these other iconic slashers, horror icons, they're wearing masks or they're disfigured, whatever. But there's only one Robert Englund that can play Freddy. That's it, man. I mean, you see his face. Everybody else behind a mask, you can throw that mask over anybody and go with that. But Robert Englund could have played that character. If you want to remake it, bring him back and just let him do it.
Right.
And he wouldn't need as much makeup now.
not as much, man. No.
Yeah.
So, very true, buddy. Very true. All right, dude. So so it's interesting. Both of our number 3s were Nightmare on Elm Street in some form or fashion. So very creative choice, obviously. Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, great minds think alike, man.
Genre. Indeed, my friend.
Number 2 is another. It's a remake for me, but it's 2009 Friday the 13th, because I am a huge Friday the 13th. I mean, it wasn't like I was named after him, but my name is Jason, so of course I got to like Friday the 13th. And I love all of the series, even Jason Takes Manhattan, and the one where he's in Jason X, where he's in outer space. But anyway, yeah. But the remake, I remember going to the theater to watch this, and right at the beginning, it starts off where those kids are out there. It's bunch of college age kids going out and they're trying to find this pot farm. They're going to try to get a bunch of marijuana plants and stuff like that, or weed. I don't know. I try to stay politically correct on. They're going to get some pot to smoke, and they find out where it's at, but they set up camp. And right from the beginning, you have Jason come out and he makes a couple of kills. And the first thing that you think about with that movie is he's running. Like you see him way over here and he comes running. We've never seen Jason run, other than I think in part 2 there was like a little snippet where he was like moving kind of quick. But in this one, you think of Jason, you just think everybody's running away from him. He's walking through the woods and he catches them somehow. But in this movie, he's just running and pow, bears that machete right down the dude. Yeah. And, from that point on, I was like, oh, shoot.
It was good.
Yeah. And then you think, well, man, that's a movie by itself, the first 10 minutes. And then it's like, oh, what are they going to do now? And they showed the icon, it's kind of like they blended part 2 and 3 together,
1 through 4. Yeah.
So it's kind of like they blended them all together, because you have him wearing the sack over his head, and then they show where he gets the mask from, which is different from the original series where he gets the mask. The only time you can actually see his face is if you kind of try to slow or pause it down when he's getting ready to put the hockey mask on. there's a reflection in a mirror that's up there where he's getting ready to put it on, and you can slow it down and you can kind of see it. But I've got a great picture that I'm going to put on here in just a second that will show what his face looked like, and he had hair hanging out. You know what I mean? So it wasn't. It was pretty awesome. This is just a a messed up guy with a deformity, and they killed his mother, and you know.
No, dude, obviously Friday the 13th deserves its place on this list. And I did like that 2009 remake of it as well. Platinum Dunes was on a roll there for a while here in the past 15 years. Really classic and really some great remakes of horror films. This is one of their better ones.
This had
first 20 minutes was fantastic. It starred Jared, what's his name, Padalecki from Supernatural.
Yeah,
So
I can't say his name, so that was going to let you.
You can imagine one of the Winchester brothers as
yeah.
as taking on as taking
I've
on
never
Jason.
seen that. I've never watched that show.
Oh, dude, that's a great. I watched the first 10 years. I gave it 10 years of my life.
People tell me I'm crazy
of
because I haven't seen it yet.
You would like it. It's really good. But no, I think this one it was good. And to your point, that first 20 minutes of the film, man, it's I saw this movie in the theater also, and that first 20 minutes of the film, it was. I think that might be the best. I mean, the movie's good. I enjoyed it, but that's probably the best part of the movie. The first 20 minutes, it's like boom, it kicks right off the bat.
But it explains.
The way it kind of gave you, I like the way it kind of gives you a little insight as to maybe how Jason was getting around so quickly throughout all these years with these tunnels that they have underneath, that he's moving around in.
So it pretty much, it shows you there was nothing mystical, no magic going on. That how could he show up from here to way over here on the other side of, the camp or whatever is. This dude's built tunnels under everywhere, or maybe those tunnels were, maybe it's an old mining area or something. We don't know, but it just made sense. And there's little bells, he's got little wires run, so bells ring. And I thought it was awesome that he kept that one girl down there, which is very unlike Jason to do. He would never keep anybody just hanging around, but she had that little trinket or whatever it was, the necklace that his mom was wearing, and I guess she kind of reminded him of his mom. So but man, I liked it. It was just a whole part of like when I first heard they were going to do it, I was mad as hell because I said, man, they're ruining another movie, man. You can't redo Friday the 13th. You can't remake it. I'm going to go watch it just because it's Friday the 13th. And you get there and then all of a sudden Jason runs like, oh, well, this is okay. It's different.
You know what I liked about the remake too is when it came out. It actually came out on Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th in February 13th is when it came out on that Friday. So and I saw it that day, and it was
that's where good. I was.
Yep, dude. So I'm going to continue on. It's funny, that is number 2. I actually have Friday the 13th as well. Not the remake. I actually have part 4. Which to me is one of them. It's probably one of the more important ones in the line of the Friday the 13th movies, because this is really the first time, as much as he's associated with the hockey mask.
Yeah.
As we all know, you and I and other horror fans know, he didn't really get that hockey mask until near the end of part 3. You know, from that one kid who liked horror movies or whatever. And
Shelley.
Shelley, okay, yeah. So that's where he got it from. I believe it was his. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's when he started to wear it. So this is the first movie where Jason is in full Jason garb from beginning to end, and it introduced us to Tommy Jarvis, which is a nemesis that went on that he battled throughout this film in the next 2 movies.
Yeah.
Or kind of in part 2, or in part 5, but whatever.
But
Tommy thought he was fighting Jason in part 5. How about that?
Yeah.
But then went on in part 6. But and we talked about part 6 a little bit on our last show. But no, and it also has weird Crispin Glover dancing. So that was scary enough as it is. You know what I mean? To have that in the movie. But no,
he's an odd fellow, really, that's for sure.
He is. But for real, to me, like I said, this is an important movie because it does instill 2 important pieces of Jason history, or where it kind of begins with him in the hockey mask the whole time, and then Tommy Jarvis, which him and they have that little battle that goes on throughout there. But I liked it. It was also the first time where really Jason was coming into his own and being.
I like the way that movie. I love that one too. That's one of my favorite ones out of that whole series. That and Six, and both of them have Tommy Jarvis. I mean, all of them are great, but with that one, just the way that they ended that movie, they really could have spawned that off to where Tommy became a serial killer. And I can see where part 5, they thought that was a good idea. And then I guess they got a lot of flack about it, but I guess that's why they came back with number 6 with the older Tommy Jarvis coming back. And now remember, at this point too, there's a battle going on in real life between Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, who can make the most and keep going with it. You know what I mean? So it's back and forth. So probably what happened is the final chapter, part 4.
Yeah.
So they probably said, all right, that's it for us. And then all of a sudden, here comes a Nightmare on Elm Street out with number 5. And they're like, damn it.
Right.
We've got to do another one.
Yeah, I know. That is so true. Well, wait. Didn't the first Nightmare on Elm Street come out in 1984?
I have the date now, 1984.
So that's interesting.
Oh yeah, because
that they were kind of more. So that one came out the same year. Nightmare on Elm Street came out the same year as. So you're right, Jason. Actually, that they were going to bed. You know what I mean? They were putting it to bed, and then Freddy came out. They were like, whoa, we're dusting him off. You know what I mean? We're not going to let New Line Cinema make all the money. Paramount was like, we got our own guy. Let's dust him off and bring him back. So,
and then you have Leatherface over here, and they're like, we're going to make some too. Hey, who is this Matthew McConaughey fella?
Exactly.
Get him to be in it and ruin it.
Yeah. Him and Renee Zellweger at the same time. It's so funny that both those A-list actors and actresses were in that film that made one of the worst of the series.
I'll say, since I had a Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, on there a minute ago with Johnny Depp. That was his first movie. Let's talk about Friday the 13th and with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, yep.
You know what I mean?
One of his first films,
a lot of them got their starts in. Did I mention anybody? I'm trying to think if there was anybody else that
they got their start from a Friday 13th movie.
Yeah, or just horror movie at all. Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun.
Leprechaun. Yep. I think most people. I think if you're starting to get your work in Hollywood, maybe I'm wrong, but I think horror is,
just jump in.
You find a lot of the people were getting their start in that horror genre.
Lynn Shay from Insidious, she was the teacher in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, she was.
So it's just, I guess so, because who knows if horror movies are going to make it. So, and it's probably easier. Yeah, like you were saying, it's easier to get a role in a horror movie, even if you just get killed off real quick.
Yeah,
you got your name and face out there.
Here now, I for one am anxiously awaiting to see what you have on your number 1 spot list, my friend.
Okay, so remember I said there was a twist to my list.
Yes, you did.
And I started number 5 with the original Halloween, and my number 1 is the 2007 Rob Zombie remake of Halloween.
Oh man, all right.
So you can compare this with my number 5. I like the original. Everybody loves the original John Carpenter 1978 one, but there's something about, me and Rob Zombie. There's something about this one that they show more of the background of young Michael Myers, him in school. And I think he was probably a little disturbed to begin with. And then if you get to see how his family life was in this one, his mom's a stripper. She's got some asshole guy living with her that's, he's abusive. He's hitting on Michael's sister right in front of the mother. And, it's just, now this one is, I love how Rob Zombie does his things because he has so many actors from his other movies in them, and Tyler Maine's in it. He plays Michael Myers. Tyler Mane, of course, was also in The Devil's Rejects as one of the Firefly brothers, Otis's brother. Malcolm McDowell is in this one. He plays Dr. Loomis. He was also in 31 from Rob Zombie. Then you have, let's see, Sid Haig, of course, makes a cameo along with Bill Moseley, Danny Trejo. Sherry Moon Zombie is Michael Myers' mother. William Forsythe makes an appearance.
He's the boyfriend, right?
Yes.
William Forsythe. I was trying to think of his name the whole time, and you said it. So that was.
And he got exactly what he deserved, man. And let's talk about let's see, Scout Taylor Compton. That's who plays Laurie Strode in this one. And I have to write these down there. I never remember. Danielle Harris, who I consider a scream queen. She was in Halloween 4. She was the one that we thought was going to take over this movie, and here she is, comes back, and now she's in the remake of Halloween. But I love how they did it. Yeah. She played the friend of Laurie Strode, but it was just, and she's in the second part of Rob Zombie's series too. Yes. She survived. I don't know how she survived the first one, but there's something about this one. So, and also a little connection that I made is one of those weird things that, so we all know that the iconic mask was, it was a Captain Kirk mask that was they just went out and bought on the fly and painted it white in the first 1978 movie. So Malcolm McDowell was actually in a Star Trek movie, and I'm trying to think of which one it was, but I love it.
Generations.
Yeah, fights Captain Kirk. Yeah. And well, I just thought that, I'd throw that in there, that he was in a movie where he's fighting Captain Kirk in that one, and then he ends up getting fighting Captain Kirk's mask. Yeah. But I loved it, man. It was, to me, how I love realistic, and that's you can't get much more realistic than that, man. It's a kid, he finally just snaps, and he's so calm about it, man. That's what, when you watch this, even the young Michael Myers and that he's played by Daeg Farish, or I'm probably slaughtering that name, but that's who plays young Michael Myers. And if you just watch him, man, right from the beginning, where those bullies are picking on him, and he finally, follows the one bully into the woods and beats him to death with a stick, man. And never once. And it was one of those things where he hits him, and you see right from that point, because he's wearing the clown mask. You see right from that point, he picks the mask up and he's standing and looking down at the kid who he's just hit several times. The kid's, please, no more, no more. And he looks at him almost like he's going to stop, but then he pulls the mask down. And it's such a good relationship to when he gets older with the mask. Like once that mask comes down, and even when he goes when he gets home and he kills him, and that's when he first puts on the mask, the iconic mask, and he kills the mom's boyfriend, and he kills the sister's boyfriend, and then he goes up and takes care of the sister. And when he goes into the insane asylum, and they're treating him, and at one point he, the whole time, and then all of a sudden he said, I made a mask. And then, once he puts the mask on, he stops talking, he's doing nothing. And I mean, you can just see him like declining with that mask. And then they show his room, and there's masks, paper mache masks everywhere. And
his humanity dissolves and is gone completely. Whatever Shredder was when those masks, are on him, or he then becomes the shape or complete evil.
And he's so much bigger in this movie, like,
oh gosh,
each of the remakes. If we jump back to the Friday the 13th remake, look how big and buff Jason was in that movie, man. You know what I mean? These two, like, his neck's like this. He's just like standing like, oh my God, man. And this one here, man, Tyler Mane's huge anyway. And, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I was in the Kiss Army. So when this movie started, God of Thunder by Kiss playing right from the beginning. And I was like, oh man, it got me right there. It gives you that whole 70s vibe. So man, Halloween.
No, dude. Very good choice. I'll just roll right into mine. Mine is the original Halloween.
That's
It's my number
insane.
one. I just felt like, as I mentioned before, when we talked about it, when you had it at number 5, which I definitely love how you put it at number 5 and have it again, capping it off at number 1 and with the new one. But for me, I think it's deserved the number 1 spot because, like I mentioned, it did kick off the slasher genre as we know it today. I mean, it was also the highest grossing independent film. I think up until like the past 5 years, 10 years. I can't remember what movie finally took the crown, but Halloween was the biggest earner of an independent film up until, like I said, 5 years ago. It came out in '78, so it holds that honor. All the things you mentioned about it is why I love it. Jimmy Lee Curtis did a fantastic job in it. It propelled her to stardom, which she'd be somebody who's got her start in horror for sure. That was her first movie, as we talked about.
Yeah.
And John Carpenter and his soundtrack that he did. Not only did he create an iconic, slasher killer murderer guy, but the
which is
one of the
heard
most recognizable.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter which movie of the series, which remake, it doesn't matter which timeline you follow, that music is there
because it's a classic. I mean, I think Michael was propelled. Who knows if there hadn't been that? Not to say Michael wasn't good enough on his own, but that synthezoid, is just as, it's synonymous with him. Yeah. You know what I mean? It is. And I think that all those things together propelled him to where he is, and as to why he's number 1 on my list.
I couldn't decide which way I was going to throw that. And I said, well, which one, if I was going to sit down and watch one, would I watch the original or would I watch the 2007 remake? And I said, well, I would probably go with the remake just because it's more gory and, I love the gore.
Well, guys, thank you very much. Look for us every Friday at midnight. We will be dropping new episodes at that point in time. Again, thank you very much for joining us, Jason. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, man. Always a good time, Lee. Another great episode. Really enjoyed it.
Remake.